Hello everyone and welcome to my B&B Fan Club channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Luna's story was not always filled with tragedy. She used to be a light-hearted woman, with a laugh that could brighten even the darkest of days. She and Bill had met in a little seaside village where the sea whispered secrets to anybody who listened. He was a fisherman's son, rough around the edges but with a heart that appeared to beat in sync with hers. They fell in love beneath the stars, their dreams intertwined like the nets he tossed into the ocean. They talked of the future, a small house near the beach, a family, a life full of the simple delights of love and togetherness. Luna, an artist who enjoys painting the sea's ever-changing moods, regarded Bill as her muse, her anchor in a world that sometimes felt too large. But the tides of fate are unpredictable, and love, like the sea, can become treacherous unexpectedly. Luna found she was pregnant, shattering their bliss. The news, which should have been a source of delight, instead became the catalyst for their unraveling. Bill's manner shifted. The warmth in his eyes faded, replaced by a distrust that gnawed at their relationship. He began to examine Luna's every action and word, as if she was concealing something horrible. The truth was significantly simpler, but far more devastating. Luna had been fighting with her mental health, a secret she kept hidden for fear of tainting their love. Her condition worsened during the pregnancy. The hormones, stress, and weight of imminent motherhood overwhelmed her. She began to withdraw, her paintings becoming darker and her smiles less. Instead of offering support, Bill perceived her challenges as a betrayal. He accused her of cheating, conspiring to abandon him, and being unsuitable to carry their child. The charges were unfounded and stemmed from his own fears, but they stung deeply. Luna attempted to explain and offer her heart to him, but Bill's confidence had dissolved like sand against the ocean. Their once vibrant love had become a battleground, with each day marking a new skirmish in a war neither of them completely comprehended. The breaking point came during a stormy night, similar to the one currently raging outside Luna's apartment. Bill had walked off in rage, leaving Luna alone to face her concerns and her unborn child. She had called out to him, desperate to fix what had been broken, but he would not listen. Instead, he moved to the courts, using his clout in their little community to portray Luna as unstable, unfit, and a threat to the child she was carrying. He hired a nasty lawyer, created a story of deception and betrayal, and applied for full custody before the kid was delivered. Luna, unprepared and overwhelmed, could hardly afford a public defender. The legal system, harsh and unforgiving, appeared to prefer Bill's polished lies over Luna's fragmented truth. Their daughter, Lila, was born during the commotion. Luna held her for barely a brief, exquisite moment before the medical staff, acting on court orders, removed the newborn. Bill's counsel obtained an emergency order, stating Luna's mental state posed an immediate threat. The pain in that instant was a never-ending wound, a raw ache that pulsed with each beat of Luna's heart. She was granted supervised visits, but even those were contaminated by Bill's presence, his steely eyes following her every move and his lawyer making notes to use against her. The letter in Luna's hands represented the culmination of Bill's campaign against her. He had gathered evidence, doctored communications, biased statements from neighbors, and even a falsified medical report, to assemble a case that would deny Luna custody, while simultaneously imprisoning her for suspected negligence and endangerment. The claims were ludicrous, but Bill's power and resources made them seem terrifyingly plausible. Luna's public lawyer, who was overworked and understaffed, could do little to stop the attacks. The trial was looming, like a dark cloud on the horizon, and Luna felt its weight pressing her into the earth. She stood up and approached the small mirror over her dresser, her reflection a ghost of the woman she once was. Her eyes, once brilliant with promise, were now hollow, surrounded by shadows from sleepless nights. Her hands, formerly steady as they held a paintbrush, shook with anxiety and tiredness. She thought about her tiny daughter, Lila, who was growing up without her mother's touch or voice. The thought was like a dagger, twisting deeper with each passing day. Luna had no money, no allies, and no method to combat the machine Bill had set in action. All she had was her unwavering love for her daughter, which burned through the shroud of misery. The apartment was peaceful save for the rain, and Luna's mind strayed back to happier times with Bill. She recalled the first time he brought her out on his boat, and how the sea stretched out eternally before them, a canvas of possibility. She remembered him laughing when she got paint on his cheek and kissing her under the moonlight, pledging forever. Those recollections had been polluted, like a painting left out in the rain, with the colors seeping into something unidentifiable. She sat at her modest table and took out a sketchbook she hadn't touched in months. Her fingers, reluctant at first, began to move, creating lines that became waves, then a figure, a lady standing alone on a beach with her back to the sea. It was Luna, or perhaps the Luna she aspired to be. Powerful, unbroken, and defying the storm. Tears spilled across the paper, blurring the pencil lines, but she continued to draw. This was her defiance, refusing to let Bill completely obliterate her. The trial moved quickly, a frenzy of legal jargon and harsh glances. Luna sat in the courtroom, her heart beating as Bill's lawyer described her as a monster. They showed emails she'd never sent, medical data she'd never read, and eyewitnesses who claimed to have seen her unravel. Luna's lawyer did his best, but his efforts were insufficient. Bill sat across the room, his face a mask of victory, his eyes empty of the love they once cherished. Luna wanted to shout, to tell the world the truth, but her voice felt confined and crushed by the weight of the lies. The judge's gavel crashed like a thunderclap, and the verdict was worse than Luna had expected. Bill was not only granted custody, but Luna was also forced to undergo a mandatory psychiatric evaluation and face child endangerment charges. The fear of incarceration loomed, promising to take away what little she had left. As she was carried out of the courthouse, she noticed Bill holding Lila, his demeanor chilly and satisfied. Luna's legs buckled, but she forced herself to rise and meet his gaze one final time. She refused to let him see her break. Back in her flat, the rain continued to fall, mirroring the tempest within. Luna sat with her sketchbook, the drawing of the woman on the shore finished. She added one last detail. A small figure in the distance, a youngster reaching out, a symbol of hope despite despair. Luna felt she couldn't give up, especially since Lila was growing up without her. She began to write, spilling her heart out onto the page. A letter to her daughter, which she might never send but felt compelled to compose. She wrote of her love, her regrets, and her ambitions for Lila's future. She wrote of the sea, the strength required to stand up to its waves, and the resilience Luna intended to instill in her daughter. Days passed into weeks, and Luna battled in the only way she could. She sought pro bono legal assistance, contacting organizations that serve women in trouble. She attended every court-mandated evaluation, determined to demonstrate her stability and worth as a mother. She painted anew, her art becoming a lifeline, a way to transform her sorrow into something beautiful. Her flat, once a prison of sorrow, was transformed into a sanctuary of creation, complete with canvases of stormy seas and defiant characters. However, the war was far from over. Bill's resources were limitless, his drive to ruin her unwavering. Every step Luna moved forward was met with a new challenge, a new falsehood, and a new blow to her frail hope. Nonetheless, she persisted, motivated by the picture of Lila and a love that refused to die. She began to connect with others who had gone through similar experiences, mothers who had lost their children, women who had been silenced by systems that prioritized power over truth. Their stories gave her strength, and their support was a lifeline in the darkness. One evening, as the rain stopped and the clouds parted to reveal a sliver of moon, Luna stood at her window, clutching her sketchbook to her bosom. She remembered Bill's letter, its nasty words a faraway echo. She had not yet rotted in prison, and she would fight with her last breath to ensure that she never did. She would battle for Lila, for the opportunity to hold her daughter again and tell her the truth about their life. Luna's heart was heavy, her path uncertain, but for the first time in months, she felt a glimmer of something she thought she had lost: hope. The sea beyond her window was quiet now, and its surface reflected the moonlight like a promise. Luna closed her eyes and allowed the sound of the waves to wash over her. She wasn't defeated. She was a mother, an artist, and a lady who had been through storms and would face more. And somewhere out there her kid was waiting, a beacon calling her back home. Bill sat alone in the dark light of the kitchen, the clock ticking louder than normal, each sound cutting through the thick silence. The coffee in his mug had long since cooled, but he still clutched it as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. His hands trembled slightly, not from the chill, but from the never-ending repeat of memories. When he closed his eyes, he remembered Luna. The way she used to giggle. The way she rested her palm on her belly and whispered vows to their unborn child. It was meant to be distinctive. They were intended to form a family. When Luna initially entered his life, Bill was still recovering from years of sorrow. He had grown up believing that love was fragile, that it faded away when held too closely. But Luna was different. She exuded warmth and made the world seem secure again. He had met her at a charity event where she was volunteering, her grin beaming even in the pouring rain. It was almost cinematic. He offered her his coat, she declined, they laughed, and something changed in him that day. Within months they became inseparable. Bill worked hard hours at a construction company, but he always returned home early when possible to visit Luna. She was an artist who painted vibrant skies and surreal landscapes that filled their small room with vibrancy. When she told him she was pregnant, Bill burst into tears of excitement rather than dread. He had created a crib with his own hands, carefully carving each screw and plank. He wanted everything to be ideal for their child. However, as is often the case, life had other intentions. Luna began to change following the pregnancy announcement. It was subtle at first. She appeared distracted and even withdrawn. Bill suspected it was hormones or the stress of preparing for childbirth. He didn't press her, believing that love entailed patience. However, messages began to arrive on her phone at unusual hours. She stated that the late-night calls were from a friend. Missed appointments. Lies entwined themselves into knots too tight to ignore. When he eventually confronted her, she burst into tears, admitting that she was dating someone else, a lawyer named Derek, whom she met at the art gallery where her paintings were on show. That night Bill's world broke wide. He did not yell. He did not even cry. He just stood there, numb, watching the woman he loved destroy every dream they created together. But the worst has yet to come. Weeks later, Luna accused Bill of something he hadn't done. Aggression, manipulation, and threats that never materialized. She sought for a restraining order, describing him as a monster. She stated that she feared for her own and the baby's safety. Bill could not believe it. The lady who had held his heart was now tearing it apart in court. Derek, it turned out, was more than simply a lover. He was her lawyer. Together, they constructed a case so painfully persuasive that Bill's entire life began to crumble. He was forced out of his home, his career, and eventually the opportunity to become a father. His own buddies had stopped calling. His parents had ceased visiting. Everyone glanced at him with silent disapproval, whispers trailing behind him wherever he went. Iris, a little girl, was born while Bill sat in a modest rented room across town, surrounded by boxes and broken memories. He was not even allowed to see her. Every time he attempted to reach out through legal procedures, Luna's counsel blocked him with additional charges and lies. But Bill was not the type of man who gave up easily. He began recording everything. Every call, message, and discrepancy in Luna's remarks. He worked silently and deliberately, putting together the truth like a puzzle that only he could see. Took about 2 years. 2 years of restless nights, eating instant noodles, and doing odd jobs to support his lawyer. 2 years of only seeing his daughter through images Luna uploaded online, her little face obscured by filters, her laughter captured but never shared. Then came the day when everything changed. Bill's lawyer, Richard, a quiet, older man, discovered something. A sequence of bank transactions connected Luna and Derek. Payments were camouflaged as art sales, but the timing matched important points in their legal battle. Then came the recordings. Excerpts of Luna's discussions in which she boasted of getting rid of Bill and securing full custody no matter the cost. When the new evidence was shown in court, Luna's face shifted. She had lost her confident smirk from earlier hearings. This time her eyes wandered uncomfortably, and her hands fidgeted while the judge listened quietly. Bill sat across from her, his pulse thumping not with victory but with grief. He didn't seek vengeance anymore. He just wanted his kid to know the truth someday. That her father was not the villain in her mother's story. The courtroom air seemed heavy as Luna's lies were revealed one by one. The judge's tone changed from polite patience to measured disapproval. When the verdict was announced, Bill did not even smile. Luna was convicted of perjury, obstruction, and child endangerment. She was condemned to several years of prison. Derek lost his law license. It should have felt like justice. It should have provided a sense of closure. But all Bill felt was emptiness. He went to see Luna one more time before she was sent to a state facility. She sat behind the glass, face pale and eyes red from crying. "You wanted me to rot," she complained bitterly, her voice shaking. Bill shook his head slowly. "No," he muttered. "I wanted you to tell the truth." She glanced aside, her lips twitching. For a brief time he imagined he saw the lady he once loved. Luna, who used to paint sunsets and hum while cooking. But that version of her had vanished, buried beneath remorse and pride. A bitter breeze pursued him when he left the prison that day. He went to the park where he used to fantasize taking Iris on walks. The golden and brittle leaves fell, crunching softly under his boots. He sat on a seat and took out a small photo, a printout of his daughter's face that he had kept folded in his wallet for years. She looked exactly like Luna. Months have passed. Luna sent him letters from prison. They were angry at first, blaming him for everything and insisting she was desperate and terrified. But gradually the tone changed. The words softened. She began apologizing. She revealed that Derek had manipulated her, and that she was frightened of losing control. She stated she regretted everything. Bill never replied. He did not know how. He couldn't simply forgive, especially after what had been taken from him. But when the court eventually granted him partial custody of Iris, he stood outside the child facility, shivering like a man going to face a ghost. The door opened and a small child with inquiring blue eyes emerged, holding the hand of a social worker. She gave him a hesitant look, tilting her head. "Hi," she whispered quietly. "Are you my daddy?" The words shattered something within him. He knelt, tears flowing down his cheeks, and nodded. "Yeah," he muttered. "Yeah, I am." Iris stretched out and caressed his face, as if she were attempting to memorize him. Her tiny palm was warm, and her smile was unsure but genuine. That moment, that single heartbeat of connection, made all the years of anguish worthwhile. They spent the afternoon at the park. She asked inquiries, informed him about her favorite toys and tunes. Bill listened intently, preserving each word like a treasure. When it was time to take her back, she gripped him firmly, her tiny arms gripping his neck. "Can I see you again?" she asked. He gulped hard and nodded. "You can see me anytime, sweetheart." Later that night, he returned to his peaceful apartment. The walls didn't seem so empty anymore. He got out a canvas and began painting for the first time since Luna's departure. It was a morning image, not bright or perfect but soft and natural, with gold and gray streaks melting together. When Luna was liberated years later, she asked to visit Iris. The girl, now older, wanted to meet her mother. Bill agreed, although he had some reservations. They met in a neutral setting, a tiny garden behind a community center. Luna appeared frail yet different. There was no arrogance in her eyes, only the peaceful acceptance of someone who has experienced her own penance. Iris came up to her and held her firmly, oblivious to the pain that had occurred between her parents. Bill remained at a distance, watching them. Luna met his gaze, tears streaming down her cheeks, and mouthed the words, "Thank you." He nodded but did not speak. Some scars never healed, but they eased with time. That night, when he tucked Iris into bed, she said, "Daddy, why is Mommy crying so much?" Bill paused, then grinned softly. "Because sometimes," he explained, pushing her hair back, "people make errors. Big ones. But when they realize it, it hurts." Iris reflected for a time. "Do you still love her?" He looked at the ceiling, the query ringing in his chest. "I don't know," he replied honestly. "But I'll always be concerned about what happens to her. Because she gave me you." Years passed. Iris matured into a kind young woman who was powerful and compassionate. She discovered the truth in bits, not through bitterness but with compassion. She never blamed her mother or father. She simply realized that life is made up of people, flawed and human, doing their best. Bill continued to paint as he grew older, depicting scenes of light bursting through clouds, waves crashing against cliffs, and rejuvenation. His art was no longer about suffering but rather peace. Luna subsequently relocated to another city, where she worked at a rehabilitation clinic, and assisted others in rebuilding their lives. They never returned to their former selves, but there was a silent forgiveness between them that didn't need to be expressed. And sometimes on Iris' birthday, they would all gather together, not as adversaries or strangers, but as a broken family that had found its way back to something kinder. Bill never forgot the years he lost, nor the hatred that possessed him. However, he discovered that no amount of vengeance, no matter how righteous, can ever truly heal. What cured him was love. Quiet, patient, imperfect love that had survived the disaster. The world kept turning. Seasons change. And laughter resonated again in the small apartment where there had previously only been stillness, sweet, hopeful and free.